Hey folks, Liquid here, and welcome back to the channel where I break down the mindsets of billionaires. And today's idea is inspired by fellow Canadian Stewart Butterfield. He's the co-founder of the photo sharing site Flickr and the popular messaging application Slack, both of which I'm pretty sure you've heard of before. According to Forbes, Stewart is worth $1.9 billion. When asked about his financial situation in an interview, he said that he believes there are three levels of wealth. I think this is an interesting framework because it's often easier to achieve a set of increasingly difficult smaller goals than to just go for the biggest one straight away. So I'm adopting this mentality and it's helping to motivate me to rise from one level to the next. So, the first level of wealth he talks about is when you're not stressed out about debt anymore. You no longer have to worry about your credit card bills or your student loan payments. So, this is when you're not struggling with finances and you're well on your way in planning for the future and for your retirement. This is the easiest level of wealth to achieve, and pretty much anybody who aspires to be wealthy can get here. If this was a Super Mario Bros. World, it would be 1 1. Pretty simple, straightforward, and not a lot of obstacles. He doesn't say exactly how much money you need to be at this level, but I'm going to ballpark it and say it's around $100,000 in investable assets. According to Stewart, the next level up is when you can go to a restaurant and not have to care about what things cost. Like maybe you'll see something you really like on the menu for $30, but then you see something else that's $20 and you don't like it as much, but it's cheaper. If you're at level 2 wealth, then you'll just go with the $30 item. That's because it doesn't matter how much you spend on any one particular meal anymore. This is like level 1-3 with all the platforms. It's more difficult to get here, and you'll need a higher degree of skills and experience to get through this level. Again, we don't know what Stewart considers to be level 2, but I'm going to say it's probably around $1 million. But what's even better than not caring about food prices is when you don't even care about your vacation cost, and that is level 3. According to Stewart, at this point, you don't care about how expensive the hotel is or which flight you get on, because those decisions don't have a large impact anymore on your wealth. This is like the water level from World 2 2. If you've created your own wealth up until this point, you really have to know what you're doing. Maybe you're investing in assets that other people don't have access to, so you have to be more careful, almost like dealing in a different environment. I'll say the threshold for this level is $10 million in investable assets. According to Stewart, this is the final level of wealth, and there is not much more happiness to be gained if you have more money than this. However, I don't think this takes into consideration real estate. For example, if you want to live in a nice home like this one in West Vancouver with a nice view of the water, you'll have to pay $7.7 million. Or if you want to own this fancy condo on Bloor Street in Toronto, you'll have to pay $9.7 million. And what remaining money you do have will quickly get eaten away by the monthly maintenance fees. Oof. So level 2 is not caring about what food costs. Level 3 is not caring about vacation costs. What if you can not care about your housing costs? That would be another level of wealth. So I'm going to add another step and call this level 4 wealth. This basically means you have $100 million in investable assets and you can buy your dream house. This is like the final castle level in World 8.4. Most people who have played the game don't make it past this final level. And of course, most people don't even need to be at this level. $100 million is the epitome of a luxurious life. You can do pretty much anything you want and never have to worry about running out of money ever. In fact, your biggest concern at this point might be how will the money be used when you're not around anymore? In other words, what's your legacy going to be? And you'll probably realize that the biggest change is not in the size of your investment portfolio, but it's actually you. The way you look at money, people, the world at this stage is much different than when you first started playing the wealth game. But what if you want to play the stereotype of a rich person and buy your own private jet? Well, you can buy a Bombardier Challenger 650. A brand new one will only cost you $32 million to start, but you get what you pay for. It's kind of slow and the interior is not very stylish. And you don't want your other rich friends to make fun of you, so instead, you want to buy the Gulfstream G700 with the fancy Rolls-Royce engines. It has a top speed over 1100 kilometers an hour, and you can travel in style. The thing is, it's going to set you back $75 million. Plus, you'll have a lot of ongoing expenses just to maintain and operate it. So, if you play with expensive toys and want to have the best traveling experience, $100 million isn't going to feel like that much money. So, just for fun, even though it's completely unnecessary, let's say there's a level 5. This is going to be the Billionaires Club. This is like playing 1-1 but with a twist, made by YT Sunny for Super Mario Maker 2. You have to understand the game mechanics inside and out if you want to have a chance to beat this level. As Uncle Ben would say, with great power comes great responsibility, and $1 billion is a lot of power for somebody to wield. Because you're probably not going to use all of the money, so most of it's going to be given away in one way or another. So if you make an error in judgment or make a mistake in how that money is used, it's going to affect a lot of people, and it's probably going to change their lives way more meaningfully than it's going to affect you. So having that responsibility would be a huge burden for anyone. They say beyond a certain amount, money doesn't make your life any better, but what that amount actually is will probably depend on who you ask. For example, $1 million is a lot of money for a bachelor living in Austin, Texas. You can probably retire on that nest egg because the cost of living is just not very high. But on the other hand, if you have a family with children and you're living in New York City, then $1 million isn't going to make you feel rich because just the rent alone for, let's say, a two-bedroom apartment in a good neighborhood will set you back $75,000 a year.
What?
And that's just for the cost of housing. So by no means is this graph designed to reflect your personal situation. At best, it provides a very broad guideline to illustrate the different levels of wealth people can generally achieve. And at the end of the day, you have to figure out how much money you ultimately want to acquire, and then break that up into smaller goals and play the custom wealth game that you've designed and win it. And that could look completely different than this graph here. So if you're still watching, thank you so much, and let me share with you this extra bit of insight. So far, I've only described each individual stage of wealth, but how do you go from one level to the next? It's not as simple as just continuing to live within your means, save the difference, and invest it into a diversified index fund. That's generally okay advice for somebody who's just starting out. Maybe they're trying to get to level 1 wealth. That's typically the Dave Ramsey audience, where they're focused on paying down debt and cutting unnecessary spending. But just doing those things alone isn't going to get you to level 2 or level 3 or beyond, at least not without a tremendous amount of time and sacrifice. And that's why oftentimes people get stuck moving on to the next level, or they struggle trying to gain momentum to propel them forward. Like they get to $100,000, for example, level 1, which, congratulations, that's a huge milestone. But then they kind of just stagnate there. The problem is most likely because they haven't shifted their way of thinking. I sort of alluded to this earlier, but when you're thinking about these different wealth levels, you have to realize that it's not just your money growing over time, because what's more profound is that you're actually growing too. And the wealth that you are accumulating, more than anything else, is just a reflection of who you have become along the way. So it really does start with where your headspace is at, because when you have nothing, you're almost forced to think about the immediate future, the short term, right? It's hard to plan for your retirement if you don't even know you'll have enough money to make next month's rent. And you don't have time to research different stocks or investments if you have to save money by comparing prices and looking out for deals at the supermarket. However, once you make it onto the wealth ladder, once you've entered the game and you have at least $100,000 of investable assets, you can afford to not be in that fixed mindset anymore, and you actually have to change your mind if you want to level up to the next tier. The mentality required for you to survive cannot help you anymore when you're ready to thrive. And one of the changes you'll have to make, for example, is to value your time more. Is it worth clipping coupons or brewing your own coffee at home when the savings are just so small relative to what you have in the bank already? Can you find a better use of your time than to save a few dollars here and there? For example, maybe you can look for alternative investment options to minimize your fees. Can you find ways to maybe be more productive at work to raise your paycheck? People usually make 10 to 20% more income just by switching jobs, even if it's a lateral move with the same work responsibilities. Or maybe you can leverage your skills to start a side hustle. I posted a video last week where I talked about how to find the right side income based on your personality. The only constant really is change. Once your wealth situation changes, you have to shift your focus and then adapt and change your mind as well about what's required for the next level. So, for example, once you reach level 2, first of all, congratulations, but then you'll have to change your mindset again if you want to climb to the next level, to $10 million. Now, if you're the type of person who doesn't like change, you can actually donate some to me. I need it to pay for parking sometimes. Thanks. And unfortunately, that's the limits of my knowledge. My wife and I are at level 2 right now, so I can't say from experience what you actually need to do to reach level 3 and beyond. However, there are hints all around us on the internet, in books, from history, to show us how the wealthy at these higher levels think. And just from what I've witnessed so far, it seems like the higher the level of wealth that people play in, the more intentional they tend to be with their actions, and the more aware they are about themselves, their environment, and the people they associate with. That's not based on statistics or anything, it's just something I've noticed. I do plan to reach level 3 sometime over the next 10 years. Based on my current understanding of the economy and the market's trends, I'm pretty confident this is achievable. Famous YouTuber Graham Stephan, who also talks about finance, says that his goal is to eventually have $100 million someday, which would put him at level 4. And I think he can definitely get there. In terms of getting to level 5, well, the easiest way I know how is to use the tax-free savings account. I made a video before showing how Canadians can accumulate a $1 billion TFSA portfolio. If you haven't seen it yet, you can click here to find out how. You do need a few other people to help you, and you have to be patient, but it is doable. Anyway, thanks always for watching, and until next time.